featured on the video, and others who some of us have heard over the year that we thought we ought to, whose wisdom we ought to share with all the governors. I'm very pleased that we have the representatives from 4 such initiatives today. Khatib Waheed is the director of Caring Communities program in St. Louis, Missouri. This initiative is a statewide school-based effort to ensure that children stay and succeed in school and that they remain in their families and stay out of foster care and the juvenile justice system. Vicki Wallach is an administrator with the Child and Family Services on Oahu and Hawaii. Her agency runs Healthy Start, which I talked about briefly before, to identify troubled families at the time a child is born and provide assistance to those for up to 5 years. I had the pleasure of learning about her program earlier, and we are beginning now to import some of the aspects of that program here in Vermont. Dr. Olivia Thomas, who you saw featured on the film, she asked me why she was here, and now I know, because I hadn't seen the film before, from Columbus, Ohio. She's a pediatrician with the Community and Pediatric Adolescent Services in Columbus and been a leader in Governor Voinovich's Family and Children First initiative. Lure Holly is the director of the Mothers of Simpson Street from Madison, Wisconsin. This is a program we also heard about in December, which we thought was so impressive that we ought to ask her back and explain what she does as a community organizer, mobilizing her community in Madison, Wisconsin. Throughout the campaign, we have focused attention on how to better support young children and their families, and I've asked these individuals to offer their advice about what governors can do to replicate community initiatives such as theirs. Their comments will be followed by a roundtable discussion. I want to welcome again Con Hogan, Vermont's Secretary of Human Services and the winner of the NGA's Distinguished Service Award in State Government. Con is the reason that Vermont has been cited as one of the best states in the country in which to raise a child. And I have asked him to chair the panel, provide a few brief remarks about what he's learned from his experiences working in Vermont. And Con, thank you for joining us, and let me turn this now over to you and your fellow panelists.
Governor, thank you. Governors, welcome. Across the country, there is a healthy ferment taking place as communities come alive to the challenge of taking on more responsibility and more resource authority for the overall health and welfare of families and children. This awakening is being fueled by the rapidly changing relationship between the federal government and the states. It's also being energized by the knowledge that the days of having increasing resources to do the job are gone, and by the realization that an essential part of reinventing government is finding better ways of getting better results for our people at less cost. For decades, both the responsibility and the resource authority for promoting healthy communities and good outcomes for children and families have been, by and large, the preserve of the federal and state governments, and decidedly not in the hands of our communities. We have finally come to realize that it is through sharing work with communities that we are most likely to achieve the results we all want. That's a big change, and it presents real challenges both to the states and our communities. Each of our panelists will address in 5 minutes or less some of the important things we need to do. The first thing has to do with the impact of your leadership. When governors lead, people listen, people speak out, and things happen. The NGA vision, which says that all of our lives are enriched and improved when we can build stronger families, healthier children, and more effective communities, is key. The second thing to do is to work with people to agree on the results we want to work for. Whether it's the Oregon benchmarking project or Minnesota's milestones or Iowa's people priorities, Missouri's directions for change, North Carolina's Smart Start, or Vermont's core outcomes project, we're seeing major attention paid at all levels of governance to clearer and more trackable outcomes. In short, we need to know and share where we have been and where we are today so that we can map out the results we want for tomorrow. And equally as important, we need to organize this information at very local levels. In Vermont, the people in every school district catchment area are now learning how their families and children are doing regarding many key outcomes, be they teen pregnancy rates, immunizations, child abuse, or children's health indicators. This is a mirror which communities are using to look themselves in the eye and then organize to take action. In the words of a former boss of mine, in God we trust, all others need data. Another thing to do is work with new partners, including our schools, to serve neighborhoods and communities in new ways and with new players, with the families and children themselves at the center. These partners will not only help us do better what we already do, but will stretch us to do things that up to this point have been beyond us. And we must do prevention in a much bigger way. As Governor Jean just said, in Vermont, we are seeing a stunning 25% reduction in substantiated child abuse victims over the last 2 years, and the third-year report will show even larger reductions. We directly attribute these results to a changing climate, where prevention, education, and aggressive prosecution are emphasized at both the state and local level. A web of efforts, including healthy babies, home visits, early intervention services, Success by 6, school transition efforts, family preservation work, all done by many good people working together at the local level, is paying off. Another important aspect of this thinking is the recognition that we need to invest in the strengths of our people and social institutions in our communities, and that we need to move away from the destructive and often self-fulfilling thinking which identifies an endless litany of needs which can never be fulfilled, rather than recognizing that children, families, and communities all have strengths on which to build. We also need to consider some very important relationships that we're just beginning to understand better. For example, low-income children who live in affordable housing are significantly better nourished than children who don't. 10th grade reading scores correlate more closely with median family income than with anything else. And working parents not only have higher educational expectations for their children, but they also have children who perform better in school. We also know that children need consistent relationships with adults, and that elders need more valued roles. We need to have more intergenerational relationships, which are simply put, reciprocal and mutually beneficial. What are the challenges of state government in these changing times? Make agreements with communities about the outcomes we all want as a foundation for change. And our experience in Vermont says that that will go well. Why? Because we all want the same best outcomes for our children and families. Tie our finance systems and government structures more closely to the results we all want, so we begin to have more accountability, which frankly has been lost greatly over the last several decades. Help communities develop their own capacity to govern at these new levels of responsibility and authority. And redevelop our information systems to support more communication and local decision making. And this one speaks to a very serious problem, namely the general lack of support for information technology development across many levels of government. This is important because, by and large, government is information. People in this area, as Lou Gerstner told us, we are lagging badly. These things to do and more will be expressed to one degree or another by these seasoned and innovative people from which we have much to learn. And with that, I'd like to ask Lorraine Holly of the Mothers of Simpson Street to share some of her key thinking with us.
Good morning. First, I'd like to say thank you to particularly the governor from the state of Wisconsin for having me here, because I'm representing a group of socially, economically disadvantaged people, but proud and intelligent community grassroots people who are making remarkable differences and changes in their communities by empowering themselves. And for too long, we have not been able to have a voice, so this has given us an opportunity to have a voice to say exactly what needs to be said. And for that, I'm grateful. For too long, our communities have been run by systems. We've had systematic control in the communities, and that has been not a plus for us. We are a group of people who want to make changes in our community, who want to empower ourselves and to let things happen the way we see and feel that they should happen, so that we can help our children. We need to be the ones to make the differences in the lives of our children. We cannot make differences in the lives of our children if we are going to be continually controlled by the systems, because the systems do not know what it is that we want. This is another form of the plantation mentality, when you have the systems coming in from the outside and dominating and taking over our community, telling us what it is that we need and telling us how to fix it. We don't need the systems to do that any longer. And the communities of people, grassroots people, are beginning to rise up and say that. We want to take control. We are empowered people. We want to take control of our community. And if the system people are going to come in, they should come in on a very low-key level and listen to our needs and assist us as we require their assistance, not to come in and dominate the community. Otherwise, we will not be able to make any difference and help our children. We also know that we have a voice. Our voice should be heard. The systems may come in and see us as being someone who need to have a hole in the wall where you may call a school so that we can receive a GED in our community. Well, we may want to go outside of the neighborhood and go to the university and sit right next to you and receive a PhD. A GED may not be our goal. We are not impressed when you come into our neighborhood and tell us that you're doing us a favor by taking us to the food pantries. We may want to open a neighborhood grocery store and have our own food pantries. We may not be impressed with you giving us free bus tickets and telling us you're helping us to get across town to the doctor. We may want to be the doctor, and we may want to drive the bus. We may not be impressed with you coming into our communities telling us how to discipline and raise our children. We may know how to do that ourselves, and we do know how to do that ourselves. And we would not be able to make any difference in our community unless the system people move out. And I've been in community organizations and organizing for 25 years. And for 25 years, I have seen systems take over, and for 25 years, I've seen the same results. Nothing has changed. Definition of insanity is to continue to do the same things over and over again and to expect different results. And that's what's happening. We're continuing to do the same things over and over again, and we're expecting different results. The only thing that's going to make a difference is if you give the community back their voices. The second thing that I want to point out is that we need to promote success in our children rather than failure. I've seen far too many times where the government is giving funding to kids who are in the system, giving funding, and I am all for intervention and prevention. But I'm also for promoting our kids who are successful. In the schools, I've seen the kids who are acting up and disruptive be the kids that get the front seats in the classroom. They're the kids that get the breaks. They're the kids that get 2 hours out. They're the kids that get someone to come in and do work, which is supposed to be anger management workshops, which turns out to be them watching a movie and going to a theater, having pizza parties, and this is to deter them from doing disruptive things. Then you have the 3.4-point students who are doing well, who can actually afford to take 2 hours out of a week when the disruptive kids can't even afford to take 2 hours out of a week to do nothing but study. But we have the 3.5, 4-point students who can actually afford and deserve to go on the field trips. They can't go because the money is designed for system kids. We put too much emphasis and focus and highlight on kids who are not doing well, and we're not doing what we need to do for the kids who are doing well. That's why the agency that I'm with, we have a special program that honor and recognize kids with 3.5 grade averages and above. We want you to know that in our community, we have far more kids that are doing well in school than that are doing bad. But the focus has always been on the bad kids. Now, one of the things that the governors can do, and what we have found that have worked is really remarkable in our community, is they can get directly involved with the communities, get directly involved, make it personal. We have been able to call on the governor's office to give proclamation to these students that are making 3 points, and then the disruptive students can look at this and say, whoa, you got, the governor says you're a great student. I mean, I've got a proclamation from the governor. Then that means that they're going to have to do something different to get that. They have to know that they can't get rewarded for doing disruptive things. That makes the kids who are doing well look and see that, well, if I'm doing well and not getting rewarded, I might as well have a fight. And at the end of the school year, we have began to see things like that happen. The 3.5 kids were beginning to get into trouble and fights, things that they had never done before, just so that they could get attention. And we need to turn that around. The attention needs to be focused on the kids that deserve to get the attention, and that's the success for students. And Thank you. One of the last things that I want to recommend, and when I was at the airport, I called to get the blessings of the mothers of Simpson Street and to say goodbye. And the last thing that they told me, well, you make sure that you tell those governors we want control of our children back. We want to be able to discipline our children the way we see fit. We're tired of people, as I say, coming into our neighborhood telling us how to raise our children. They're telling us how to parent our children. We are the experts at parenting children. We parented children 400 years ago. That's all we've done is parent children. You know, we are the expert at parenting children. So now, how can you tell us how to parent children? When our parents disciplined us, there was no such thing. I'd never heard of talking about guns. Guns? I mean, we never heard of talking about guns. We never heard of girls getting pregnant. When a teenager got pregnant, when I was coming up, it was a social outcast. It was a disgrace, and everybody knew about it. I mean, the parents could not walk around and hold their head up. Now it's a way of life. Because we don't have control of our children. We cannot discipline our children the way we see fit. Social services comes into our neighborhood, give our kid a card in front of us, right in our presence, and say, if your parents touch you, to give us a call. Then the kid, as soon as the person walks out, start doing all kinds of disruptive things and say, if you touch me, you'll go to jail. You know, and we are sick of that kind of mentality. We need to do something different. So the first, as I said, the first thing, the most important thing that I have to offer to you today is to give the voices back to the people. Exactly what's happening right here, right now, today, is to give the community, grassroots people whose lives are being affected, give them a voice. Let them tell you what they want to happen in their community and how they want to fix it. And they ask you for the resources, and you give them the resources as they ask for it, not as you demand, and not what you want to happen to them, but what they want. And the second one is to fund success, to promote success in our children, and stop promoting failure. The third is to give the parents the right to discipline and take charge of the lives of their children. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Now we'd like to ask Vicki Wallach, who was on our end with the Prevention Service Administration in Hawaii. This is a state that we've watched very carefully and learned a lot from.
Am I on? Okay. Governor Dean and members of the National Governors Association, thank you for allowing me to participate in this meeting. As you consider social policy options to strengthen families, I would like to recommend that you regard family support programs as a central building block in a human service system. In particular, those programs that are preventive, comprehensive, and have demonstrated effectiveness seem to best respond to the needs of overburdened families. These programs begin to address what Governor Cuomo referred to as the quiet catastrophes across our country, those difficult life circumstances that stifle the lives of millions of citizens each day and undermine our future. Community-based service initiatives serve to meet two important goals for families residing in poverty. First, to buffer the effects of economic hardship by strengthening the family's ability to cope with the harsh realities of their daily lives. And second, to focus on the enhancement of a positive parent-child relationship despite numerous obstacles to attentive parenting. There is an emerging belief that prevention programs can render significant economic and social payoffs. The U.S. House Select Committee on Children, Youth, and Families, in an analysis of data over the last 25 years, did conclude that prevention pays. This report cites economic returns of $6 for every $1 invested in the reduced costs of remedial education, welfare, crime, and social services. Thus, there are expected returns on human capital investments. But like all investments in growth, most of the dividends come later. A generation may need to elapse before the full value of the payoff is realized. Home visitation is increasingly regarded as the core component of family support programs, as it has been shown to not only improve child health, but to alter the mother's life course. For these reasons, this interventive strategy has been used since the turn of the century. It may be interesting for you to note that Mary Richmond, in 1899, published the first manual on home visitation called Friendly Visiting Among the Poor, and this text is considered to be a classic in the field and still utilized today. Significant social outcomes, such as a reduction in child abuse rates, increased maternal employment, a reduction in unintended subsequent pregnancies, and an enhanced child development are associated with home visitation programs. Hawaii's home visitation model, called Healthy Start, serves families whose exceptional circumstances place them at risk for child abuse and neglect. The impact of this program has been impressive. For 2,254 families who received services from July 1987 to July 1991, in 99% of the target children, abuse was not confirmed. In addition, 90% of 2-year-olds were fully immunized, 90% of the children had an identified medical provider, and 85% of the children were developmentally on target. In this time of growing social demands with fewer resources, Hawaii's governor has made a substantial commitment to prevention programs by allocating $6 million to Healthy Start for the next year. It is clear that time-limited family support programs can have long-term impact on family well-being if they are carefully designed and implemented to maximize family gains. Liz Shore, in her book, Within Our Reach, Breaking the Cycle of Disadvantage, summarizes a list of program components that are prone to make a difference in the lives of families. First, offer a broad spectrum of services. Programs with multiple goals are generally more effective than single-focused programs. Most importantly, home visiting needs to be seen as part of a comprehensive array of program components to include job training, adult education, child care, and transportation. Second, view the child in the context of the family and the family in the context of the community. Programs must be attentive to the economic, ethnic, and social details of families' lives. Families need to be assisted within their neighborhoods and the cultural resources that shape their daily existence. Third, utilize staff who are perceived by those they serve as people who care about and respect them. Home visitor services promote continuity and support within a very personal relationship. Since there is variability in the way families respond to social services, supportive services, staff learn to customize their relationships and service implementation. Staff offer a lifeline to families, and most especially to those families with extraordinary life challenges that make them unlikely to demonstrate change with home-based intervention alone. These families often need intensive and continuous therapeutic and supportive services to promote self-sufficiency. Fourth and finally, services need to be coherent and user-friendly. Home visitor services view the families they serve as partners. Mutually defined goals that are manageable, achievable, and reasonable shape the work with each family. Above all, staff communicate an optimism as they attempt to mobilize families to act on their own behalf. Prevention is a prudent investment. However, efforts must involve the combined responsibilities of the public and provider sector working collaboratively in the best interest of a child and family. Our future as a nation depends on how well we respond to the quiet catastrophes among our youngest, most vulnerable citizens in order to build communities of healthy families. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Looking forward to hearing from Khatib Waheed. 7 to 8 years in St. Louis doing some wonderful work.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wake up out there now. I know it's been a long 3 days, but we're almost at the end. Let me start, if I may, with the name of God and extend the greetings of peace to all of you. I want to thank Governor Dean, and all of the governors for making it possible for the St. Louis Caring Communities programs to be represented here today. We've been asked to make recommendations within 5 minutes, and I'm going to try very desperately to do that. Before I give the recommendations, I want to say very quickly that Caring Communities in St. Louis started as an initiative from the state. State directors, along with the governor, decided that business needed to be done differently in neighborhoods serving families who have multiple problems. Their concern centered around the fragmented service delivery systems. We looked to add some cost-effective measures, and we found over the years in Caring Communities that it costs roughly $1,000 a year to serve each student at the schools where our services are delivered. When we look at that continuum of funding from kindergarten through grade 12, we're talking about roughly $13,000 spent over a 13-year period. And we match that with the amount that it costs to incarcerate one individual from a family like the ones we serve. And we find that between $12,000 and $25,000 a year are required to incarcerate one individual. So we think that cost effectiveness is an important consideration. Secondly, we found that the children who receive services through our model have improved academically by about 200%. Their behavior has improved by 198%, and their work habits have improved 200%. Thirdly, we've been found to be considered an intricate part in the reduction of crime in the neighborhoods. We've been blessed and fortunate enough over the last 5 years through our drug marches in collaboration with the police department to shut down 22 crack houses by directly marching on the homes where drugs are being sold. Therefore, this model of delivering services in the school and linked with the school makes a lot of sense for us. It's effective both cost-wise and outcomes-wise. We therefore would like to make 4 primary recommendations to the governors. The first is that we would ask that you would encourage interagency collaboration among all of the directors, state directors, who are providing services in the areas of labor, education, mental health, social services, health, and others. And up under that, or subsets of that recommendation, we ask that this interagency collaboration occur with the following things in mind. First, that they create a seamless funding stream. In other words, where they pool their resources when they're providing services for the same families and are targeting the same populations in geographic areas. Secondly, as a subset of this first recommendation, we ask that the governors do this in a way that will enable local neighborhoods and communities to develop the design and scope of services to be provided for their families. Third, we ask that technical assistance be provided to the local neighborhoods to ensure success on the neighborhood level. Fourth, we ask that there be encouragement to deliver services in ways that not only focus on children, but that focus on families and focus on neighborhoods as well. We find that focusing simply on children is not enough. We also find that focusing on children and families falls short of the mark, particularly when those families are in neighborhoods of high environmental risk. Fourth recommendation, as a subset for recommendation number 1, is that there be an allowance to share information between the providers, particularly when they're serving the same families. Confidentiality has become the 11th commandment issued in the last decade that suggests that people not share information and that they not collaborate. And so we need to have encouragement from the governors in ways that will enable providers to share the information on an as-needs-to-know basis. Fifth, we ask that, as a subset, that the process of developing outcomes and performance measures occur on a top-down as well as a bottom-up approach. That recommendations strictly from the state regarding the performance measures are often not targeted in ways that are achievable when the input of the local communities are not considered. The second overall recommendation that I would like to offer to the governors for your consideration is that you encourage the development and implementation of preventive and early intervention services, which are both comprehensive and which constitute a continuum of care for the 0 to 5 population as well as school-age population. We find often that the pendulum swings one way or the other. We either put all of our resources into the 0 to 5 population with no support for the children once they enter school, or we focus on the children once they enter school with no interventions before they enter school. So we're asking that there be a balance in providing a continuum of care for both populations. The third recommendation is that you sanction or give support to risk-taking when it is reasonable. It is important that we recognize that to develop interventions and take innovative approaches often requires taking risks. It therefore suggests that the state directors and local communities be given some latitude in developing the kinds of programs that they need without fear of funding being removed in a short period of time. And then the last recommendation centers around the whole question of welfare reform. And we're asking that as you begin to put the welfare reform packages together in your respective states, that you consider ensuring that parents who are transitioning from welfare to work have access, continued access to the kind of support services that will ensure that their stay in the workforce will be successful. I'm talking about the kind of services that enable the children and families to grow to capacity. Behavior therapy, substance abuse case management and codependency counseling, school-age child care, after-school tutoring, case management services, and the like. These are services that will be needed by the families before they enter the workforce, and they will be needed subsequently. So to have, in addition to that, job coaches and job readiness training for these families, for the parents of these families who are foreign to the workforce, will be very critical if we expect this new reform movement to be successful. I want to thank you.
And finally, our last panelist is Olivia Thomas. She's a physician and pediatrician and has had many, many years of experience in Ohio.
Governors, good morning. I'm most appreciative of the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Families and children need to be able to access quality and comprehensive health care in the communities where they live. Our program has 5 and soon to be 7 clinics in low-income areas in Columbus. Families also need access to other services like WIC, Head Start, and safe and reliable child care. Parents need to be a part of the planning for all of these services. Initiatives like the Family and Children First initiative that Governor Voinovich sponsors in Ohio are needed throughout the country to really help family access whatever services that they need. Also in Ohio, we have a program called Help Me Grow. That's a program that encourages women to enter prenatal care early in their pregnancy and then encourages them to take their children then in for their comprehensive health care visits after the babies are born. All state agencies need to be involved to work together so that they make this process easier then for the families. Over the past years, Title V and the MCH block grant have been vital and cost-effective, have made available vital and cost-effective care for pregnant women and children with special health care needs. The use of the MCH block grant dollars is very flexible, depending upon the needs of the community. It's provided funding for startup costs for clinics. It funds case management, transportation, outreach workers, home visiting, health education, really whatever a community deems are necessary for those families, we can use those monies for that purpose. In Ohio, women and children have been covered up to 250% of the federal poverty level and you compare this with the 133% Medicaid level. If the MCH block grant to states is cut 50% as being proposed, many programs like mine may have to drastically reduce services for families, and many of the benefits that have been gained over the years may be reduced, like women entering prenatal care early in their pregnancy during the first trimester and the reduction in the infant mortality rate. Medicaid has been a safety net for many working parents. Medicaid has provided funding for the EPSDT exams, which have helped providers identify problems early that children may have and refer the children then for treatment. All this, however, is threatened with the federal restructuring of Medicaid. A minimum level of Medicaid eligibility is needed for children to assure that they receive medically necessary care.